Okay, phone a friend. Man, Claude desktop is not kind to me when I'm trying to make PowerPoint slides and I need some creative help. Mike, help. So Mike, you're CMO. You've run you're a CMO partner here at TechCXO with me. And
Yeah.
then your brain is very complementary to my brain. I'm tech brain. You're a creative brain. And you ran an agency for a long time here in Atlanta. And help, Mike. How do we think about how do you maybe start with how do you use AI to generate creative assets, and then kind of what's your flow? Specifically around we talked off the air about creating a PowerPoint deck that is going to look good, conform to brand standards, and then convey, really, really nice information in an educational format. So how do we think about that? How do you think about that? Maybe kind of walk us through your process.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say there's kind of two use cases for translating content and research into presentation form. One case is how to do it for clients, right? And is this going to be for internal use or is this going to be for external eyes? Could be a sales deck, could be something that's customer facing. And then the other use case is how do we personally use those tools for business development and trying to find efficiencies in putting together presentations, audits, proposals, whatever you want. So, yeah, I can certainly go down a rabbit hole
Let's go.
in a second. Well,
That's what this is all about, man. Let's poke at the edges and figure out what this thing can and can't do, because there's a little bit of FUD out there,
yeah,
misunderstanding.
Yeah. So, as a former art director and creative director, I probably have a vocabulary that's different than a lot of other CMOs in regards to design and typography and things like that. The two tools that I've been playing with, are Canva and Gamma.
Okay.
Really for myself and putting together proposals. And I will also admit that as a former art director, the early versions of Canva I found offensive because
No. Okay. That bad. Okay.
I did, and and it's also, it's just the judginess inherent to creative people. But I was also a big evangelist of the Adobe Creative Suite for so many years. It was my go-to tool. Now I don't use it, anymore. I have people that I bring in that I provide some oversight and some guidance, but they're the ones using the tools, not me. And that's kind of a hard transition sometimes to make. But to Canva's credit, it has come so far, and the AI functionality and being able to build custom templates and populate those quickly, I think are amazing. And I'm still discovering. I'm certainly no super user, so I'm still in the kind of exploratory phase of those.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
so I certainly have I've told Claude about the Canva tool
Mhm.
via MCP. So I kind of experimented a little bit with that, and I'm
And
not sure how far I got,
did
but
or did you ask Claude to prompt you too on how I should set Canva up for success as a tool, essentially what you should feed it to
oh,
get the output you want?
no, you're smart though. You want to try it, or do you
Sure,
want to
sure,
kind of share a little bit? Okay, let me see.
sure.
Okay.
And while you're doing that, I will also tell you that one consistency across every use case is the training of the tool. And quite honestly, this is a problem with some of my clients too, is, it's going to naturally ask you for things like, help me put guardrails around what I create on your behalf, right? So is there a style guide that you could upload with brand colors, typefaces, a brand voice, which is critically important? And, brands that have those are already ahead of the game. Those that don't, can you create in the absence of it? Sure, but you're going to get inconsistent results.
Okay. All right. So here's Claude. Where do we go from here?
Just
Uh,
so,
as
I
a
mean,
consultant
yeah.
who wants to use Canva to produce compelling PowerPoint or slide, or I would say presentations.
And you may even want to overlay some, additional information about you are a very, I mean, you can choose whatever language you want, but as as a fractional CTO or as a technology focused consultant, and even say, I struggle with the aesthetics of design. You know what I mean? So, we can teach it that you're very tech savvy, but you're not going to have the same vocabulary as, say, a creative director would or a CMO
Okay.
would,
Okay.
And I think that might
Uh,
be helpful.
as a fractional CTO consultant, so as I'm a tech brain consultant who wants to use Canva to produce compelling presentations, help me set up Canva to operate
To,
to what?
yeah, to create more consistent and persuasive, you know, presentations. Um, but keep in mind that I, won't have the same language as a creative minded consultant would have, or however you want to phrase that. Or don't presume I'll have, I can give you creative direction. Please prompt me with questions on things that I'm not factoring in. Yeah.
Try that.
Yeah. Let's see what it says.
It's always a great opportunity. It's always fun. Okay. Do you have existing brand colors, fonts, and logos? Okay.
There you go. It's always the
Uh,
first thing it asks, no matter what tool you use.
all right. Visual styles, presentation types. Oh
Yep.
man, there's a lot of questions here.
I know. So, one of the things that you've got to decide, again, depending on the use case, is if you're doing this for a client and they don't have style guides, you can still probably go and pull in reference. It could be reference from a web page, reference from social media, LinkedIn, other things that, whether the brand even knows it or not, it is somewhat committing to a particular set of styles, right?
Okay.
And you could feed that in and say, use these three pieces of reference, to help me create brand guidelines since none exist.
Okay. Should should we I'm going to stop sharing here. So should we go to Canva or so that's a lot of questions for me to answer. It's probably,
Right, right.
we don't want to sit here and watch me type, or struggle with that, but that's pretty cool. And then, so I imagine it's going to kind of walk me through, oh, you need to go, get your brands and do this and set it up for that. And then kind of
Correct.
what's the situation, or do you have yours you can share, or how do should Canva look like, once we get going here?
Yeah, so you'll have to give me a second to open
I
that.
have, I'll share this. This is my, kind of personal benchmark for, is this stuff working or not? It's the red wine, test. So I want a wine glass that has a stem and a huge bowl with legs of red Bordeaux running down the side. And it always has trouble with this
And
for
yeah,
like,
when you say running down the sides, like literally leaking out as if the glass is like a sieve and has holes in it.
yeah, yeah. And it's like, oh, come on, but like this one's close. And then like, I always, it's kind of a running joke, you know, always hit Dolly and, all these image generators with that particular prompt, because you got to know about wine, which is a very human thing, and what is Bordeaux, and it's just like never quite there yet. So
Yeah.
it's
Well,
funny.
that is funny.
And then half
Let
full, it has
me,
trouble with half full sometimes,
okay.
versus a glass of wine.
So let me actually share
Yeah.
Gamma,
Okay.
and I'll show one of the decks that I've kind of turned into a template, and they're and I can talk about some of the challenges, features. Okay,
I just love, getting inside your brain. You just, kind of
same,
this end of the
same.
business, so while you're doing that, I'm going to look and see if there's a, Gamma MCP server that we can possibly use. Oh, wow.
So you can see this, okay? One other question for you: as Riverside is recording this, it doesn't see the screen since it's my screen sharing. You only see Gamma, right? You don't see the Riverside
Correct.
interaction between us. Okay,
Yeah,
just want
yeah,
to
I
make sure I'm
see
not
it.
blocking.
No, I think
Okay,
our both of our videos are on, and then there's like an orange window, like orange background window that's looks like Gamma and some slides.
okay, okay. So this is an example of a document that I'm creating on a fairly consistent basis when I hire a new director of marketing using Tech6's recruiters. There's always onboarding, that needs to happen with this individual, and rather than reinventing the wheel every time, I have created this template that I use. So two directors of marketing go a different client of mine. I built the first one, and I started with, there's templates you can use. Same with Canva. You can choose a template, or if you want to, you can build your own. So within Gamma, there are what they call cards, little modules that you can use and modify. Also, what Gamma does is, like, if I want to, let's say I click on this image, and I say, oh, I want to replace this, get rid of it, remove it and put something else in there. It gives me the option of searching the web, or using AI, or uploading something from my own desktop if I have something specific. I will say I find limitations with the capability of Gamma with the prompts and the AI it generates. If it's pretty simplistic, like this picture is pretty good. Like if I say, you know, um, create a visual of the inside of a distribution warehouse. There are shelves on both sides that are filled with product that can be picked and packed, and sent out. That's pretty easy, right? It'll get that right. But if I get much more complex, I feel like there's a real limitation, and I may need to jump over to Midjourney and create, the image in a separate tool, save it down, then import it into this one.
Okay. So you use this as a way to edit the slides, and then you use AI on a tactical point basis where you say, okay, we're going to focus on this image. There's already an image, and then I want to create the best possible image here, and I'm going to use AI to bring it in or generate
Correct.
it or manage it in a lot of ways. Okay.
And so here's the other kind of formatting, thing that I've learned real well, and I think it's like a good practice of spotting patterns that work, right?
Okay.
So 30, 60, 90-day plan for onboarding works well for me, and then I break that into three categories, as you can see here. Days 1 through 30, 31 through 60, 61 through 90, and they're each titled "Learn and Audit," align and activate, and lead and optimize, right? So I'll use those again in the future. Now, what I can do is I can take this template and then I can write a Google Doc if I want for a new client and say, hey, here's the content, Gamma, for Learn and Audit. Here's the content for Align and Activate. Here's the content for Lead and Optimize. Now go plug it into my template. And
Okay.
it will create a first pass, and it knows, like, stylistically. And again, I can modify any of this. I can change the backgrounds, the colors, based on who my client is. Um, but then it will go in and it will take specific to that particular client. That first 30 days, I can say, learn an audit, go plug this in, and it will break it into these kind of subheads like brand immersion and site visits, review current state of marketing, and then plug my copy into that. Um, Also, can do things like, these little icons, it can change it based on what that content is. So I can go ahead and get a head start, or I can just go in and manually. If I don't like it, I can just swap it out.
Okay.
Make
So you have a
sense? Yeah.
so you have a template document, and
Yes.
then you have a template slide deck with styles and all
Correct.
that, and then you use what do you merge it in Chat GPT or do you merge it in Gamma?
I merge it in Gamma. I can start a new project and say, use this template, and then I can pull that document in of just a text-based, planning I have done, and then flow this into the document. Where I think I've learned that you really have to be specific is if you kind of name these components of the presentation, and you can tell it, hey, plug this into this page, then it's pretty good. Sometimes if you don't give it much direction, it may create a new slide or put too much information on one page, and you do have to kind of go in and manually change it, but at least you have a start, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'm learning, setting some guidelines for myself is, I may take a slide like this and say, hey, I never want a paragraph to be more than X number of characters. And so I can take that Google Doc and say, as a prompt for myself, each of these paragraphs need to stay within this. So I can write something up and then check the character count and go, whoops. And I can either edit it or I can, again, dump it into ChatGPT or whatever and say, hey, refine this down so it's no more than X number of
Yeah.
characters,
Yeah. So
and then
that
plug
sounds
that
like,
back in.
yeah, something you could put in a project basis, recurring project where you have ground rules, prompt that says, here's all the
Exactly.
things that I find important about this. And then please help me generate or edit or audit or,
Yeah.
something along those lines.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That
Exactly.
makes sense. It's
So,
starting to form.
yeah. So I would say, for me personally, I'm getting better at building these templated presentations, but it probably gets me 60 to 70% there on first pass. I mean, with more work, could it get me 90% there? Yeah, probably. And then that's the goal. But even 60, 70% saves hours of time.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
You
And
know?
then it's kind of like
Yeah.
the emotional lift of, I got to do another presentation, and then I'd much rather edit, and tweak than
Right.
have to start from
Right.
whole cloth. Right.
Well, the other interesting thing about the conversation, and again, how your brain works and how my brain works is, AI helps you play to the areas where you're not the strongest, right? If I'm trying to figure out something technical, certainly I could ping my buddy Todd and ask him, but I also now am getting better at going and prompting Chat GPT to explain, just like you did. You said, hey, I'm not great at the design aesthetics. I'm good at the technical side. I can say, hey, I'm good with the design aesthetics and strategy. I'm not great at the technical side. Help me understand how to create something like this, or what questions should I ask, or am I even using the right terminology here? I think it's called a blank. Is this right?
Yeah. Yeah. And
And it
then,
says, no, Mike, you're using the wrong terminology.
yeah, we used to call that manual pages, it's built into Unix. It's like, well, all these old concepts are coming back, but, you got a manual, like a hell of a manual right there in your experience, use it to prompt. And then that's now part of your context, and it can help like zero in on some really important concepts. One of the things I did, okay, so I've got this slide deck. I'll show you here. Here we go. Can you see yeah. So,
Yeah, sure can. Yeah.
so I had this Power Frontier models, and then basically I went in and I said, I think I said presentation, and then did was it
Did you
magic?
choose a template first?
No, I just kind of
Okay.
said, go for it. I can't remember where I was. This is alien to me. I don't know where I'm going. Magic media. I don't know. This is
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
You just started pulling in. Okay.
Um, so I went to I went to Claude and I said, hey, I want to do research. And I kind of went back and forth and created what I thought was an interesting PowerPoint content.
Gotcha.
And it got pretty close and close enough to kind of want to put it in a slide deck. And then I just pasted it in here. I think it was here. And then it did okay. Um, yeah. And then, it came out with, pretty decent, you know, slideshow.
Right. And so
And
then you're moving more into refinement versus like it got all the content you wanted in there, but now but now you want to put polish on it essentially.
right, and then it's like, well, is this the image I want? Well, yeah, okay, so I could go tweak that out. I don't know how to do that at this point. I guess how do you do you what do you do once you kind of get to this point? I know how to do the words. But like how do you like this isn't my brand standard. Okay, so how would I change out the brand standard, or do I just start from the brand standard to begin with? Or
Well, I think there's two ways of doing it, and this actually is a good question that I haven't really addressed before. One is you either teach it up front or you build the plane in the air, right? You either have to upload it and give it those rules to follow, or if you don't have them, as you start to see stuff that you want to then capture and say, hey, I want to start making this a rule. Whenever I use iconography, I want to be, one color line art, blah, 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 whatever, as an example. You would have to start to capture that. What I haven't done, and this is what it was an interesting question, is if you're Todd and you're already in Canva, how can I teach it using its first pass um, at a layout, right? How can I teach it in the moment, not this but that?
right.
And I haven't reverse engineered it that way. It's something that I'm gonna add that to my list of something to go learn because that would be very helpful.
Huh. And
You
then
see what I'm saying?
how do you and then how do you flow that back into your standard operating? So like on the coding side, um it's kind of like the early days of Unix. Okay, we have these resource configuration files that we would pass around, like, oh yeah, you should put like this in, and you could substitute, this for that, and you could set it up just how you like it. And then that's kind of like I haven't done that in 30 years. So now like we're starting to do that again, where people are starting to pass around their config files for like, here's what I found useful. I think we're going to all need
Yeah.
to start figuring that out. Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun time,
Well,
right?
and
It's a very creative time.
it is fun. The other way of looking at it, which I find interesting, between our two viewpoints, is you know, I may come out of I may approach design from a proactive standpoint. You may need to be prompted yourself and be reactive, right? So
I
you
have
may
no
need to
idea.
have Canva take a first pass and say, hey, how about this image? You go, ooh, no, I don't like it. You have to see it to know you don't like it. It's too big. It takes up too much space. It's, whatever aspect you don't like, you can start to put rules around it, but only after you've seen it done wrong. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
Whereas
Right.
I may
Right.
go into it and say, I know how to set the components up of the aesthetic that I appreciate. Now, go follow my rules.
Yeah. So just kind of deep thinking while you're talking there. Where does this all take us, right? And then I think where I'm coming down on is, is AI going to eat our jobs? No, not really. It's going to change our jobs in significant ways, right? It's no more crap
Yeah.
work, at least to get it started. You are going to have to be very sophisticated in what you want, but you could focus on, the last 10% that's hugely, differentiates you and your offering and your mind from everybody else. So for us as very senior resources, we can leverage the heck out of our skill set, um, to produce great outcomes. But you know, I don't know. I think I got interrupted, squirrel, but you know, uh, it's gonna raise the bar for everybody, right? You can no longer compete in a world where you have to handcraft every PowerPoint slide anymore. Like you just
Well,
can't.
but here's the other kind of realization that I personally have. You almost need to start your AI journey also at the very beginning by with a a moment of humility to say, is this really something I personally should be doing, or
Yeah.
is someone else better served to do this? But I just need to understand how it's being done, right? So if it's like you and I as fractional executives Should I know how to build proposals more efficiently? Without a doubt, right? But on the creative side, do I need to be a prompt master in Midjourney for the benefit of my clients and be able to create just the most compelling imagery? No, I don't. They don't need me doing that, but what they do need me doing is putting process around it, activating resources that can do it.
Uh-huh.
And that's where I've been going with a lot of my clients in regards to AI image and video creation is I've got production people who have decades of vocabulary. And these tools have become so sophisticated that even Mike that was, a proficient art director, my prompts are not nearly the same as some of these production people. I mean, they can literally get into here's the particular camera I want you to simulate. Here's the lens I want you to simulate. Here's the positioning of the cameras within the room we're shooting this video. I'll simulate it. I don't have that vocabulary,
Okay.
right? My client doesn't have that vocabulary. So why would I think that I could get the same results as a production expert that does have that vocabulary? So now I'm like, bring the person in, collaborate, and yes, you can 10x your output, but don't lead yourself to believe that you have the same expertise as someone else because you don't hold the same vocabulary.
Yeah. So that's Midjourney that you're talking about? The tool for all the video editing stuff, or is there others?
Yeah, for video, there's so many, but Veo 3 is
Okay.
the one right now that
Okay.
is just mind blowing how so many of the components can be done within a single app. Like it used to be where you could create a base asset video, and then you may need to take it into another tool to do, say, product replacement. Or you may need to, if you want to add audio ambiance or sound design something, you'd have to export it, take into another AI tool, do that, and then come back again. Now, Veo 3 in particular, that's what they've solved for is, man, you can do all this stuff in one place.
All right. So I was geeking out on YouTube, and Gary V. I don't know if you ever follow him or have heard of him, but
Hmm.
he's kind of
Sure.
legendary in YouTube
Yeah,
circles.
yeah.
But he has an assertion now where he's going around saying, okay, podcasts or organic content is kind of important now because hey, people to people. Um, but pretty shortly, given Veo and others, we're gonna have AI actors that are indistinguishable from actual people. So you're gonna, so have you thought
Already,
about that?
already
Or
here.
yeah, yeah. He
Oh, yeah.
said he said like at the beginning of the year. Yeah, go ahead.
So let me paint a future, scenario. When I say future, this could be a week from now, right?
Yeah, right.
Not years from now. And also a danger. So imagine this, I do a lot of performance marketing, just like a lot of my fractional CMO colleagues do, where we're trying to create the most curated, customer journey. And video is obviously an important part of that. But imagine you have these really deep segments of audiences. But we take a level further of I have a 30-year-old African American female who I know in my individual contact who that person is. Imagine if I create an AI video and I tell it within these, let's say I have 15 profiles identified within this customer segment. Within each of these, I want you to replace the person who's talking with this individual that looks just like them. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, so whether you realize it or not, you relate to the person, it's an AI avatar who's talking to you. And what you don't realize is the exact same message is being, shared with another person who's likely like you, but maybe they're of Asian descent, white descent, Latino descent, whatever. And suddenly we can version this showing a person who looks just like me.
So I have two
Think
projects
about what your
going.
conversion rates become.
Yeah, I have two projects working on technical aspects of that. On email, just email, and then one of them is given a person, can you look them up on LinkedIn and then the web, and then go read their blogs, Substack, listen to their podcast, enrich their data and figure out their persona, and then shove it
Yes.
in HubSpot. Okay, and then the other thing I'm working on is can you segment the heck out of your marketing, ICP, and then segments and then subsegments, and then take all your marketing collateral, everything you've ever written, and then line it up against each one of those sub verticals. Exactly what you're, mass customization, and then send out, email like sequences, with exactly the right message for exactly the right everything. And that's what you're talking about. Like that's already here. We're already working on that this week, right now, this morning, right?
Yeah.
Wow. And then so
There, there
video,
was a there was a LinkedIn plugin that I used to use, and I'm not even sure why I stopped, but it was called Crystal. And Crystal had the ability to go in and based on someone's LinkedIn profile and who they follow and what they post and everything, they would pull your personality profile. It was almost like a Gallup Strength Finder or DISC, Enneagram, whatever version you would say. And so they could pull that pretty accurately. And I was curious. I pulled my own just to see if it got me, or classified me, pretty accurately, and it did. But my partner and I, before we would go into a pitch, you usually have a, pre-conversation or two, and then it was like the group conversation. And you could look in the invite and see, okay, here's the three people who are going to attend this call, two of which you may not even talk to. I could go in and pull their profile, and we could know, hey, the same piece of information we need to communicate, Todd needs to hear it this way. Mike needs to hear it this way. Or, hey, Todd just wants you to cut to the chase. He does not want to talk about his family, his background. He doesn't care that you're both UGA Bulldogs. Cut to the chase. That's how Todd prefers to communicate.
right? Right.
Right? And so it gives you a distinct advantage. So you're talking about the exact same thing, but down to the individual email.
Yeah. And then we can change the face on the screen, and then we can, change it to a northern climate, southern climate, California
Right.
climate,
That's
whatever
right.
you want.
That's right.
Oh, man. So,
That's
okay,
right.
next question.
Well,
Where's like, how do
yeah.
people,
Okay.
how do organizations buy this, or do they build it? Or is there some weird in between? Like so like people make the statement SaaS is dead. And I think SaaS is going to have to change. We can quickly build a lot of the stuff in an 80% solution, with general AI, skills. But then there's that 20% polish that's a key differentiator. There's not that many super smart C-level execs running around to spare, and they're all going to be leveraged to the hilt. What does the future look like?
So my answer would be, rapid experimentation, right? I mean, it's something that's talked about a lot with any startup. Is test, validate, and refine, and then hit it again. It's no different with AI, right? There has to be a willingness to get it wrong, even to a degree. But I think the difference is the speed at which we can get it right is accelerated so fast. There's also fear, and I'll give you a phrase, and you'll know exactly what I mean. And I think it kind of captures early AI discussions. 6 fingers, right? So many clients go, as soon as you bring up AI, they say, yeah, six
Oh,
fingers. I'm
red
like,
wine glass, right?
six
Yeah,
finger people. Yeah, right. What was decades ago. And in truth, it was, maybe 6, 7 weeks ago, right? I mean, it wasn't that long
right.
ago.
Yeah,
But there's certain phrases they latch onto and they say, yeah, we don't use AI because, it produces 6 finger people. I'm like, no, it doesn't. Not anymore. There was a small window of time when it did, but not anymore.
not if you ask it right. And then,
Right. So
yeah,
then not, yeah. Yep.
all
So
right.
the answer is, I think what you have to do is just have a willingness to test it and also put it in front of customers. Now, you might do a limited sample in case it isn't received well, but, I'm a fan of transparency and put it in front of people. And if they're like, If a large enough segment of people you tested with are opposed to it, great. Take that learning and go back to the drawing board. If they're not, there's your answer, and start scaling it.
Okay. Probably have to leave it there. Man, we need to go to lunch or something and figure some of this stuff out. But that's probably it for this episode. But I'm gonna go experiment with some stuff, and I might call you back and figure some stuff out.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Mike. Appreciate the
I've got
phone a
more
friend.
projects to talk to you about too. Yeah.
Hell
Yeah,
yeah, let's
enjoyed it.
do it. Okay.